All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go and talk about the most dumbest law that this state could ever pass. Hey, what's up, you guys? This is Sam Kwak, one of the Kwak brothers, real estate investor, and we're gonna go and talk about this one law that the state passed that probably was the most dumbest move that this state could ever made. And that law is rent control. And the state that I'm talking about is California. And just recently, California passed a statewide rent control law that both has repercussions and benefits, but I think more so it has damaging factors to the people that this law is intended to protect. So what is rent control exactly? So let's go and break it down. Rent control is basically a set of policy and law that limits the landlords from increasing a vast amount of rent per every year. This new law says that landlords across the state cannot raise the rent more than 5% each year, and that's 5% plus cost of living / inflation. So let's say the inflation for this year is 2%. And so this law says we can't raise the rent more than 5% plus 2%, which is 7%. So if, let's say, the rent that I'm charging is $1,000 a month, which, by the way, is really cheap in California. Let's say my rent is $1,000. That means I cannot raise the rent more than $70 for that year. So I can only cap it to 7%. Now, there's pros and cons. Obviously, the law was intended to protect the tenants from bad landlords going out there and saying, you know what, your rent right now is $1,000. We're gonna jack it up to $1,500. Aha, like, woe is to you. Like, I have the power. So California state law is now limiting what landlords can do as far as how much they can raise rents, mainly because there are bad actors and bad people out there that just simply don't care about what the tenants think. They just think, hey, making money is the end all be all. And of course, the legislators and lawmakers respond by putting a law such like this. Now, here's what's damaging, what's really bad. Now, as a landlord, where's my incentive to go and repair a unit and hope to get a return out of it? Like, what's my incentive to, let's say, someone that has a broken faucet or a toilet that's not working as well? Well, what's my incentive for fixing the toilet when I know darn well that next year I can only raise 5 or 7% of the rent? I really don't have, I don't feel like I need to repair this because I'm not going to get my money out of it, right? So as a landlord, we're in a business of making money. We're in a business of putting money in, hoping to get money out, and hopefully more than what we put in. And that's the business we're in. And if we're taking the incentive out of being a landlord, making money, and providing housing for the public, well, what you're going to see is there's going to be a lot less landlords wanting to become landlords. You're going to see a lot less people wanting to build new apartment buildings because of this new law. And you're going to see a lot more landlords that are probably going to turn their shoulder from ever having to improve their property. So let's say there's a house in the corner in California that desperately needs remodeling. I'm talking about this place still uses like 1980s fridge, 1980s cabinets, and super old. You would have to probably spend about $50,000 to $100,000 just to update the kitchen and make it new and bring it back to life. Well, with this new rent control law, as a landlord, I don't really have an incentive to put in $50,000 or $100,000 if I know that I can only raise a certain amount of rent every year. So that means that the tenants now have to live in this 1980s, back into time type of housing. They're not going to get the remodeling or the updates that they should be getting, mainly because the landlords don't have any incentive to do so. When we're talking about the pros and cons, the pro obviously is to protect the tenants from these evil landlords that are out there. And as much as I want to say I'm a nice landlord, there are evil landlords out there that they really don't care about the tenants. They really don't care about fixing toilets and issues. They really don't care about whether you're going to feel bad or you're going to be angry at the fact that someone's going to jack up $500,000 at a time for as far as rent increase. Here's what's coming down to right now, and why this is bad for the tenants. Not only is it bad for the tenants because the landlords really don't have an incentive to repair and fix stuff, and more landlords are gonna escape this industry, or they're gonna leave this industry. Now, what's even worse is that landlords are now being forced to take the 7% or 5% increase every year. It's kind of like if you're limited to a certain amount of things, you want more of it. And here's what I mean. Let's say there's a new law, okay, I know this is silly, that every store across the country can only sell 10 candy bars a year. Well, guess what's gonna happen? People who don't naturally want to buy a candy bar are going to go buy a candy bar because, wow, this is so rare. This is so, there's less of something, thus there's more demand for it. So as a landlord, if I don't increase my rent 5% every year plus the cost of inflation, I'm going to miss that opportunity to raise the rent. So if I don't raise the rents this year, I miss it and I can't take advantage of rent increase. Previously, there were landlords that didn't raise the rents. They kept the rents pretty stagnant for a very long time. Now landlords are like, you know what, if I don't have that liberty anymore to raise the rents as much as I want to, now I'm gonna have to raise the rents every year, 5% every single year. This is gonna actually leave more damage to the tenants because now the tenants are like, well, I thought this law was to protect us. Now we got more landlords raising rents on us. When there's less of something, more people want it, right? If there's less of diamonds or less of gold, more people want it. If there's less of housing, the price of housing goes up. This is where it's an issue. So this is a great segue because I'm going to talk about what is a great alternative to rent control. Like, is rent control the only way to solve this issue of rents going up? Is it the only issue of not enough housing for everybody? So my solution to rent control, instead of doing rent control, what the government should have done, and I don't mean to sound political or anything like that, I'm just giving you my suggestion and my opinion purely from an economic standpoint. What the government should have done was incentivize landlords or incentivize real estate investor to go and build more house, to go and build more apartments, to go and build more units, because the more units, the more houses there are available to everybody, the less of the price will go up. Which in a better expression, when there's more of something, it becomes less valuable. So if there's plenty of housing, plenty of apartments to go around for everybody, there really won't be as much demand, which means that the prices aren't going to go up as steeply as we've seen in places like California and New York, San Francisco, some parts of Florida. My solution would have been, hey, tell all these investors, the people with money, to come and invest here and give them incentives such as, hey, we're going to give you 2 years of tax break for you to come and build a 100-unit apartment building, which means that now 100 more families have access to housing, which is going to drive down the cost or price of the rent even further down. If we did it that way, we didn't need to have to pass rent control laws. So that's my alternative. That would have been my suggestion as a substitute for rent control. What I hope to see is that in the future, this law will get appealed. You're going to see a lot more homelessness because more and more landlords are going to raise the rents, which means that less and less people are going to be able to afford the rent. So this is going to be actually detrimental to the economy. This is going to be damaging to a lot of people who are renting in California, mainly because this is going to have an opposite effect. There's going to be less housing. The quality of housing is going to go down. It's not going to be good for everybody. It's going to be a lose-lose proposition for everybody. No one really wins other than the government, who's raking in the fees and the money for penalizing landlords that are not following the law. So really, tenants lose, landlords lose, government wins. So I hope this gave you guys a good explanation of the new rent control law. And if your state is talking about rent control, guys, go and stop this law from ever happening because it's damaging for everybody. It doesn't protect anybody. It really doesn't. If there's ever a talk for rent control, oppose it. Here in Illinois, we almost had rent control. And luckily, I called my representative and said, hey, don't ever pass this law. This is going to be super damaging to the state. I mean, there's already laws that are damaging to the state already, but this is going to even further damage the state even more. So when there's ever a talk for rent control, make sure you partake in that conversation because everybody is affected by this law. I hope this video helps you guys with what's going on with rent control. Be sure to subscribe and like this video for our other future videos.